if you've been following sort of the gaming news at all, you might have noticed that Tim Sweeney, who is currently the CEO of Epic Games, has spoken about Microsoft's plans to unify their mobile PC and Xbox platforms using a new piece of software, or middleware, I guess you might call it, called UWP. And what this is it's basically Microsoft are looking to release their own app store, and they have their own platform that goes alongside this, which allows developers to write apps for something like Windows Phone and then easily port it across to desktop and to Xbox as well. He had quite a few sort of controversial statements to make about it. His first sort of opening comments, this was in an article he wrote for The Guardian. He said that this is the first apparent step towards locking down the consumer PC ecosystem and monopolizing app distribution and commerce. So I think it's quite clear that Tim thinks this is probably a pretty negative thing to the games industry, for them looking to release their own app store. But I mean, around the issue, it's been a bit confusing because, I mean, UWP is not necessarily just about games, and he's telling one of his comments as well was mentioning about that we should be looking at what Microsoft are doing as opposed to what they're saying. And so for the early parts of it now, what they've done is they've released sort of this lock store with some specific Windows 10 features that you can only access if you release something through UWP and not going through Steam or sort of downloading it as an external app. And that was what sparked his outrage. But yeah, I'm not too sure. So I guess, Ryan, you sort of looked over what Tim's saying. And if you could like sum up his concerns, like what do you think that he's really worried about, and do you think that sort of was deserved from Microsoft at all?
So it's pretty clear that he's very much worried about the UWP becoming very much an enclosed system and nothing really being creatively controlled, and basically no one allowed to create anything outside of that system. So for someone like Epic, that's obviously going to be a big issue, because if they're going to be locked down to one kind of store, then they're not going to be able to kind of expand their markets or, look to other places. But, he's very much hostile about it. So he's seen what he's, something that's been very much under wraps at the moment. A lot of people haven't really been talking about this. And he basically wrote this piece for The Guardian. So he, very much went out of his way. Clearly, I mean, I wouldn't say that they've gone to him and said, "What? Could you provide any words on this?" He's definitely contacted them and looked for like a big platform to kind of have his view, and he's made a very good job of it, because now everyone's talking about it. Now we're talking about it, and he's obviously unhappy that PC's basically aiming towards this idea of being an enclosed system, all based around Microsoft. And basically, he doesn't want it to be Apple. I mean, that's the main problem, right? He doesn't want Microsoft and Windows to end up like Apple.
I mean, it's interesting because a lot of the stuff he's concerned about and the stuff he's saying, it's not about stuff that's actually happened already. It's about stuff that is apparently going to happen and where he thinks it's going as a whole. And I think, that's probably one of the main problems with it, is that he's arguing very much against what he thinks is going to happen, as opposed to... But it's difficult, I guess, because like I can from his perspective definitely about closing down. So with the App Store, unless he's by locking specific features, it definitely seems like they're going in that direction where they do want to sort of make a smaller ecosystem for them to work. But I mean, Lucas, have you done anything with UWP, or do you know sort of a bit about it at all?
Well, I mean, I know from I suppose, this is where I feel UWP is going to be aimed at the moment, is towards the app side of things. So, you see games such as Candy Crush, you see games such as Jetpack Joyride, things like that, where you've seen they've made a sort of mobile conversion to desktop. So they've converted their app to a PC standalone game, and they put it onto, say, the Windows Store, for example. So you can then look at, you can play the same game but on PC. But those games are very specifically games where they can be grouped in such a way. They're not, say, a Tomb Raider, say a Battlefield, a Call of Duty, or anything like that, where how would you make that run on a mobile? It'd be a ridiculous assertion. And the thing for me is, I still think it's a bit early at this point to be accusing Microsoft of anything, where I think their push with UWP really is on the app side. So it is, for example, making Microsoft Word, work on a PC, a phone, a tablet, so on and so forth, and making iterations that fit all those things. And I think that's a fine principle to try and design to. It's a bit early to start accusing Microsoft of trying to close. Well, yeah, it's just, again, there's a logistical thing of that's not going to be possible for games. So I think it's a little bit early to start accusing them of doing that when, I don't even think it's be technically possible to actually, to stop such a, to do such a practice for certain games, really.
Because what his main fear is, it seems to be like that Windows and Microsoft are planning on just locking down the entire Windows platform and not letting anyone publish anything unless it goes through their store, which isn't what Microsoft are trying to do, and I don't think they would ever try and do that. And if you look
well, hold on, there was accusations a few years ago where it sounded like they were trying to do something similar when they were first sort of, I think it was when Windows 10 was first started to be produced. There was some suggestion that you had to download apps through the Windows Store. Now, that's again not saying it's entirely closed off, and those apps can't be in the apps you use, such as Steam, such as other game clients, whatever else, couldn't be in the Windows Store. But it was a bit of a thing where actually, basically they're prescribing you to go through that route, and you have to be approved to be allowed to be an app on said on the Windows Store.
Yeah,
and that's. You can actually run or download things, or be very difficult to through any other sources. You couldn't just download an executable from a website and run it and install something. You had to almost go through that step. Microsoft aren't entirely without sort of some sort of form. And again, I'm not sure how substantiated those sorts of accusations or rumors were, but they've come from somewhere.
So I guess to Ryan then, do you think that this is a problem where some government or some governing body should step in and try and fix it, or do you think? I mean, because I think the real issue here is that Microsoft are a monopoly basically already. They pretty much run almost all the software on any computer anywhere in the world. So if they want to make a lockdown store, it is their software, it is their stuff running on it.
Yeah, well, the issue really, on the surface of it, it's kind of hard to say if this should be a legal issue. It doesn't seem like it should be. It's very much a business practice. And when you've got alternatives out there, you can't really cry monopoly, because the fact is you can buy a Mac. And I know that for a lot of people, that's not really an option. But like, if you look on the legality of it, it is. There's no argument around that. But it is interesting. Just, I mean, that the links to Apple, and Apple have been doing it for years. So would Microsoft do it? Yes, happily. Do they want to do it? I would say definitely. And they're sort of at the moment trying to sort of fight fires. Like Tim Sweeney is a big pyromaniac in that way, sort of ruining it. But yeah.
To sort of jump in there, it is a commercial decision at the end of the day. So if the market demand dictates that people don't want it, you probably get the same Xbox climb down where we want this to be this media center of whatever else. When they first announced the Xbox One, and everyone going, where's games, and they having to almost back down their assertions or re-emphasize their marketing to do that. If it really became an issue, I'd appreciate obviously Microsoft being a big, monopoly of in the US market, but an alternative would always, I would imagine, somebody would then see that hole in the market and make an alternative which will do exactly what people want, and they have to judge that decision, I suppose. But we'll see if they actually do want to do that.
I mean, I think it is a bit of a grey area. I think that someone will have to step in, essentially, at some point, if they do decide to close down Microsoft as an open platform, because there's no real viable alternative, I think, for most people to switch to. And if you look at it from the perspective, so now we've got web browsers so Microsoft are forced to show people other options to install a web browser when they first install Windows. And I think this very much comes under that aspect of it, where because they do have like such an obscene control and domination of the PC market that they do have to be regulated, and they do have to be sort of allowed or forced even to make room for smaller developers and other software developers. Because if they didn't, they'd they have the if they did lock it down, they have the chance they could potentially crumble so many companies around the world, I think.
Well, it's their choice. I mean, your example of the Internet Explorers, that's right, but that's only, I think, in Europe or even the UK. It comes down to the individual countries and their legislation, and that would be the actual challenge there, is who's going to dictate it? Who's going to actually, there's no global governing thing of, you have to, for some countries, there probably isn't even a sort of fair trade thing where they say, you can't have monopolies, so you can't have global companies dominating the market. It's very individual. So I think Microsoft probably maybe do now do it for other countries just as a good policy. And again, I think public pressure will bend things more than any legislation would. If people boycotted Microsoft, when people boycotted their services, their app store, then it wastes everyone's time.
Yeah.
The interesting thing though is that we're talking almost as if it's completely closed off, which is not even, it's not remotely what Microsoft are trying to say. And in all their replies and in their initial kind of line is that the WP is supposed to be, you can buy things from other stores, you can do the same sort of things you can do with Steam now, and potentially use Steam still as well. So maybe it's not the kind of horror show it's definitely not the horror show that Tim Sweeney's trying to make out, but I would argue that the very much valid points that he makes, but it's very much exaggerated.
So, and Microsoft did respond. So Microsoft's response, which I'll read quickly, it's from Kellen Gallo, who's the corporate vice president of Microsoft. He basically said the Universal Windows platform is a fully open ecosystem available to every developer that can be supported by any store. We continue to make improvements to developers. For example, in the Windows 10 November update, we enable people to easily sideload apps by default and with no UX required. And we want to make Windows the best development platform regardless of technologies used, and offer tools to help developers with existing code bases of HTML, JavaScript, .NET, Win32, C+, blah, 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 and bring their code to Windows and integrate UWP capabilities, blah, 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 more PR. UWP can not only reach all Windows 10 devices, but there's now a large percentage of C# apps that can work natively on mobile experiences for iOS and Android. We're also posting on our blog about all our new development tools coming out. So they've hit back very much with full force, talking about how it is basically they are trying to keep an open platform, and because they actually haven't done anything yet, I guess it's quite easy for them to do it. And there's when they announced the Xbox originally, when they were going to have all that stuff, they were going to have it all locked down to disks and loads of DRM, and then they backtracked in the end and said, oh, actually no, we're not going to do that anymore. So who knows what their intention is or what they're doing, but I'm sure we'll see over the coming weeks when Microsoft bans Steam and Uplay and only Windows
Uplay
exists.
not Uplay.
Oh, Uplay and Origin.
How could they?